What's going on, y'all? It's TCG here, back again with another video. And today I want to talk to you about which starter deck you should pick up. Let's go over them. Let's talk about them a little bit, talk about the new cards that are in them, and kind of give you a brief idea of what these decks are looking like, what my thoughts are on them personally, which cards I think are going to be worth grabbing in the end, and if you should just pick up the sealed deck or if you should grab some singles. But before we get into that, I want to shout out today's sponsor. That's going to be Dueling Guard. They have their new Emperor's Collection live now. If you haven't checked this stuff out, it's sick. They got a Blackbeard, a Buggy, a Shanks box, and they even brought back the Doflamingo box that was super popular from last year. They even have a sick playmat and some custom leader cards. If you haven't checked it out yet, highly recommend going and checking it out. The artwork on these is incredible. I'm an avid user of their product, and I wouldn't preach it if I didn't believe in it. So make sure to go check out that link in my description. Use that code GumGumTCG. Save yourself a little bit of cash at checkout. And if you're looking for some Christmas gifts to give your homies, definitely check out their in-stock stuff. This ships out super fast to you directly. And yeah, you won't have to wait for the pre-order time. So go check out that link in the description. But let's go ahead and jump into this. So off the bat, I have the Edward Newgate starter deck pulled up here, and I think it's pretty competent. Out of the box, I think this is one of the stronger ones. If you're playing in these sealed deck events, I think this is not a bad one to roll with. Is it the best one? I don't think so, but I think it definitely is top 3, I'd say. Very, very strong. You have, I believe all of these come with 8 2Ks, if I'm not mistaken. 8 2Ks? No, maybe just 6? I don't know. This one looks like it only has 6 in it. But you are a 6K leader with Newgate, so that does help. But notable reprints in here are Ezo, you have the Marco blocker, you have the Jozu 2K, and then you have the 5 new cards, the Atmos, the Edward Newgate, the Kingdu, the Thatch, and the Ace. The cards I think that are really notable out of here are definitely going to be the Newgate. This card is very good and very generic. I like to think of it as a red Jack. Jack is a great card right now for black decks, and I think that Newgate in the future will have a lot of potential in a lot of different red decks. So definitely recommend grabbing some copies of Newgate. If you don't grab this whole deck, I would at least grab some Newgates, just because this is a very good generic character. I do think Ace is another solid pickup, especially if you're a fan of the Whitebeard Pirates types, just because you get to give it rush if you're playing a Whitebeard Pirate type leader, and then once per turn you can just give it -2K if it were going to be removed by an effect. So if they were going to KO it or something, or bottom deck it, bounce it to your hand, you can just give it -2K and it sticks on the field. I think it's really, really good. Now the other ones, Atmos, this is Edward Newgate locked. Kingdu, this one's actually not bad as a generic red card. If you're going to play a Whitebeard Pirates engine in a deck, I definitely think this is a decent card to throw in there as a chump blocker, because on your opponent's turn, if it gets KO'd by an opponent's effect, you give your leader 2,000 power that turn. So pretty good card, that kind of makes this guy just stick on the field, and you get to use him as a blocker when you want to. Unless they have some other form of removal like bottom decking or bouncing to hand, if they try to blow this up, they're gonna have a hard time attacking into your leader. So I really do like this card. And then Thatch is just kind of a Whitebeard Pirate, almost like a Gordon or a Raise Max, but it gives -2K. It also takes your life card, but you have to have a Whitebeard Pirates type name or typing on your leader. So I think it's okay. I think it's good for Whitebeard Pirates cards. I like it in Marco. I think it's pretty good in, and maybe even Ace, and definitely in Newgate as well. But I'd probably wouldn't consider running this in any other deck, even if you are running a Whitebeard Pirate engine. There are other 2Ks you can play, but let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. The next one we're going to take a look at is the Smoker deck. All right, y'all, I got the Smoker deck pulled up here, and if you know me from back in the early days when I first started this channel, you know that I am a lover of the Smoker deck. I used to play this deck religiously in 02 format. I even dabbled with it in 03 format when we got some extra Navy support cards. I love this leader. I thought that the mechanic was broken, the cost reduction and popping stuff, and it's definitely exceeded what I thought it would as of today. We look at decks like Lucci and just how powerful those are, and even Sakazuki when it was legal still. Like, it's kind of crazy to see how black as a color has evolved to full board control removal deck, whereas when it was Smoker, yes, you were definitely blowing things up and controlling the board, but you also, you were maybe blowing up 1 thing a turn, whereas in those other decks, you're blowing up 2, maybe even 3 if you're lucky. But let's go ahead and talk about the cards in this deck, and also, if you like this kind of content, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be doing a giveaway at 3K subscribers, so make sure you're in there for that. And I'm also going to have videos out next week covering each one of these decks and how I think you can upgrade them with with other cards to make a more meta viable version of these decks. So stay tuned for those. You want to subscribe so you don't miss out on those. But I think notable reprints in this Smoker deck, there's a couple. There's Brand New. I think that's a great one, but we also get this in premium boosters. So Brand New's got a bunch of reprints floating around, but it's definitely nice to see a reprint of Brand New that's accessible. We have Kobe. I think that's another good one. We have Subaru. That's a really good reprint. And Ice Age also being the last notable reprint. I guess Virgo you could toss in there just as another nice 2K. He was played for a little bit in certain decks, but Ice Age definitely being a great reprint in here as well. You know, where the Smoker deck lands on a sealed environment, I do think it's good. You do have some board control with this Kobe, the Tashigi, the Hina gets to give your leader effect off pretty easily and is just a nice blocker, hard to remove. The Garp can also help you minus cost and stuff. So I think you have some okay control in here. I don't think it's incredible. I think it's all right. But if you go to one of these sealed deck events, I probably would try to not play Smoker. I don't think it's one of the best ones. I think it's in the lower 3 of the 6 that are out. But let's talk about these new cards. So we have the new 6-cost 8K Smoker. I think this card's okay, but really only for Smoker, you know? I mean, and I wouldn't even put this in a competitive or meta version of this deck. You know, maybe try it out, but I just don't think it's going to do too much for you. You know, if you reduce the cost of some large bodies on the field by having a 10-cost Kuzan on the field, then you slap this the next turn. You can make 2 9-costs not be able to attack. That's pretty cool, but it just kind of feels gimmicky to me. I'd rather play something like the old 5-cost Smoker that has double attack. I think that one's a little bit better, but we have the new Sengoku. I actually really like this card a lot for Black Navy decks. I think this is actually one of the things that helps this deck like really get going. You know, turn 1 you get to drop this Sengoku and get your trash started, and you get some new cards to play with. So I think it's actually really great. You know, you're going to be playing with cards like Rebecca and Moria, and you want those good cards in your trash. Not Rebecca and Moria, but the cards that you trash from your hand, and then you just get to fill it up with new ones, possibly some 2Ks, possibly some things to help you keep going in the grind game. Tashigi, I have many qualms about this card. I think that it could have been much, much better if it was a 4-cost, and I don't think that the activate main once per turn should have been a, if it's the turn this character was played, effect. I think you should have been able to just do that once per turn, but it just has to be a Smoker leader. Like, if it was completely Smoker restricted and then once per turn you could trash a 0-cost, I think that would have been fine. This card is not a big body. It is not that hard to remove off the field. I think it would have been okay with it having that effect. You can't even bring this back off of Mori. I think this card is just okay at best. I wish it was just a little bit better. Hina, I think, is a decent card as well. Just being able to make it have extra cost. You know, you put that 1 Dawn on it, swing for 7, and then it's also an 8-cost on the field. Makes it hard for your opponent to remove it. But we've seen time and time again that 8 costs are nothing to a deck like Rob Lucci. And then also being able to give your leader that Dawn, I think that's actually pretty good too. Garp, I think this card's just okay. I think the only saving grace on it is it's a blocker. If it wasn't a blocker, I would think that this card is not that great, but you get to put a card on the bottom of your deck and give an opponent's -1 for the turn, so that can really help, you know, when you combine it with some of your other cost reducers. This could actually come up and help you out a little bit. But overall, I think Smoker deck is okay. I'm kind of disappointed in the support. My favorite card out of it definitely has to be the Sengoku. This card definitely helps out a lot. If I was going to build it, I'd maybe toss the Tashigi in there, maybe just 1 or 2, but I don't know. I'd have to think about it just a little bit more to consider this card. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next deck, and that's going to be Katakuri. All right, I got the Katakuri deck pulled up here, and I think that this is another one that got the short end of the stick. I think there's a handful of good reprints in here and a handful of new decent cards, but I do not think they are game warping or meta warping like some of the other cards we're going to take a look at here in just a second. But notable reprints in here are Charlotte Pudding. That's a good searcher, definitely good for the new Pudding leader. Strusen's not a bad 2K. Daifuku was only in the starter deck, Big Mom starter deck, so I think that's a decent reprint as well. Smoothie, I guess you could say, is a good reprint, but I just don't like this card that much. I think Thunderbolt's a good reprint, and then Ikaku Sovereignty, I think, is a cool 2K counter, or 2-cost counter, giving 5K when most only give like 4. I think that's pretty neat. But the new cards in here, I think, are a little underwhelming as well. And if I had to rank this one, I'd say it's probably in the bottom half as well. I think you can stand a decent chance in a sealed battle with this deck, but There's just two that kind of reign supreme, and we're going to save those for last. But the new cards, we have this new Katakuri blocker. I think it's a good card. You get to turn your top life face up and then give a Dawn to your leader or a character. So I think that's not bad. I kind of like this card in Pudding. You know, you turn your card face up, and then the next turn you just play the bigger Katakuri and turn it face down or whatever. I don't know. I think it has playability in some decks, and maybe we'll have some good playability in the future. But this card also kind of feels like the 4-drop Katakuri out of the original Big Mom deck that, like, you look at life, and then if you have less, it gains rush. It's just an okay card. I think it could have been better. However, I'm actually kind of happy they didn't give this deck too much broken support, because Katakuri is just such a good leader that any generic yellow card that comes out just kind of gets tossed into this deck. So I'm kind of happy that not all the support was really, really good. Next, we have this Charlotte Cracker, and I think that this is just all right. Like, I wouldn't throw this into a Katakuri list at all. It has the same Big Mom Pirate trigger effect that we love, that you trash a card from hand to play it, and then if it would be KO'd by an effect, you can trash your top life. I think that's okay, but it's just not worth playing over even the other Charlotte Cracker that gets double attack, and that card's not even really played in Katakuri lists. Next, we have Brule, a 3/3 with 2k counter. That's good to have another 2k counter, and it has a trigger to look at your opponent's life, or your life, sorry, you or your opponent's life, and put it at the top or the bottom, just like Cat Leader effect, and then you get to add it to your hand. So you get free information, and you get a 2k to your hand. I actually like this card a lot. I definitely think that this will see some play in not only Katakuri, but multiple different yellow decks. I kind of like this a lot. Next, we have Pudding, and I think this one is just not that great either. You have to add the top card of your life to your hand and set a 3 or less active. Just not that great. Yeah, just not a great card. I wouldn't put this into a deck. And then we have Six Mom, which actually I think has a home in many different decks. I see this card being really good in like the new Nico Robin deck, and I could actually see this being played in Katakuri. It's a pretty decent card, good stat line, and you trash a card from hand, your opponent either trashes 2 from their hand or they trash their top life. Just a good solid card. I like it. But overall thoughts on Katakuri, I think that this one is, I wouldn't say top 3, just because Katakuri is good and the Big Mom card is good. You have just a bunch of decent generic cards. You have a counter event. You have some destruction. I think this is in the top 3. I'd say if I'm ranking them, this will be probably actually maybe bottom 3. 4th. This would be 4th, because I like the Newgate one over this one just a little bit. Let me know what you think about these decks down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I do like the love that they're giving all these leaders. And actually, if you didn't hear about it, we just got news that there will be 5 more revamped starter decks that are coming out sometime next year. So be tuned in for those, because we will definitely cover those when we get some reveals for them. But yeah, I like this deck. I think it's pretty decent. I think that's kind of how like 3 of the decks are. They're just kind of decent, and then there's 3 that are pretty good. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the other decent ones, and that's going to be the Uta deck. All right, I got the Uta deck pulled up here, and yeah, I think this one might be the worst in a sealed environment. Maybe I'm wrong. Uta lovers and stands out there, let me know down in the comments, but I do not like the idea of this deck being full of half events. And most of these are just not that good events. Like, I think that's kind of what drags this one down. I mean, this is literally 28 events in this deck. That's over half your cards are event cards. And I get it, she sings songs and stuff, and these are her song cards, but like the only playable ones are these 3, I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't think the rest of these are any good. I guess this one's not bad. You get to set all your film characters active at the end of your turn. That's okay. And then this one doesn't. It makes your opponent not restand it for. Yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts on it. But notable reprints in this are definitely these events. Like, even though they're not playable, these were locked behind the Uta pack from the Uta sealed event. And if you didn't get your hands on them and you want them, you can grab them in here. Full play sets too, so that's kind of convenient. Bart is a great reprint. This card has been hard to get your hands on ever since the beginning of the game. It was given out as a promo card for early regionals and stuff, so that's a great reprint. I like this reprint as well, because this was also locked in that Uta pack, and it's just a cool art of Luffy. I'm a Luffy fan. He's one of my favorite characters, and it's just sick artwork, so nice to be able to add this to your collection. And then we get into the new cards. Like, these are also good reprints as well, but these come in the other Uta deck, you know, the Uta deck that came out literally earlier this year. So if you didn't grab those, you can grab those and get these as well. But I do think you'll want to get your hands on a couple of these cards. But if I'm being honest, if you already have the Uta decks, I might just buy singles of this. You're just going to end up with a lot of bulk. I'd say the Barts are worth it. And I think most of these new cards are worth it, except for this Luffy, and we'll get there in just a second. But this new Uta blocker, I think it's decent. I don't think it's as good as the other Uta blocker. I'm not an Uta player, though. I've not played the deck. I've played it again. I've played against it many, many times, but I just don't see this one going well into the strategy. So I guess it can give your leader that free Dawn to get an extra to get your search going or something. I don't know. It just doesn't feel great to me. And then we have Gordon. I think that this is an okay blocker, kind of replaces Blue Note just because it has the effect to be able to trash cards and give extra counter if you need it. I think it's okay. Katakuri, I believe this replaces Usopp in current Uta builds just because it can be bigger than a 3-5. It can be a 3-6. So I think that's pretty good. And then we have Shanks. This is the best card in the deck, I believe. Just being able to KO an opponent's rested characters. I think that this is a card that you should grab just if you're are a green player or just are looking to get your hands on good staples. This is a great staple card for green. Definitely see it played down the line in many different green lists. Bonnie already runs it in their new and updated list. Like, just a great addition to any green deck. And then we have a new Monkey D. Luffy 2K, and if your Uts is rested, it has 1,000 power. This one's trash. I don't think you replace any of your other 2Ks with this card. Maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't see it. So, Uts deck rating, I think this is like last on the list, I think. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. I'd love to hear your opinions on it, but I'm kind of just disappointed in this one because we just got this deck literally earlier this year, and I would have loved to see a Kinemon deck or an Odin deck or even a revamped Kid deck. I think those all would have been pretty cool. Now, these Uta cards are definitely cool and splashable into the Uta deck, but that's kind of all they go in. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the top dogs out of these starter decks, and that's going to be Monkey D. Luffy. All right, y'all, I got the Monkey D. Luffy starter deck pulled up here, and if you played in 05 format, you know how strong this leader is. This leader was really, really good in that format, right up there with Enel and Sokka, and it getting some great generic support for it is really, really, really good for this leader. Like, anything generic purple kind of just goes in this deck, but like this stuff was made for this deck, just like all the other new cards were made for their respective deck, but these are on another level, and I really like it. Notable reprints in here I do think are the Uso Hachi, the Infernosuke, Zorojuro. I think Jinbei's not a bad one. I do like this Luffy as a reprint just because this was an exclusive promo given out at local stores, and if you didn't get your hands on it, now's a chance. It's a sick artwork. Playable card, not really, but cool artwork. And then I do like the When You're at Sea You Fight Pirates card reprint. I think that's just a decent search event, playable in multiple different decks. So let's just go ahead and jump into the new cards, because this is the second best deck out of all the starter decks, in my opinion. Like, there's only one more left, and that's the best one, and I think this one's right behind it. And first we got Uso Hachi. This card is incredible as a 2K. This outclasses this Uso Hachi. It's like they gave him a raise and a promotion, and he stepped his game up. Original Uso Hachi, you have to attack with it with the Dawn, and it rests a 4 or less. This Uso Hachi, if you have 8 or more Dawn, rests an opponent's 5 or less on play, and it's still a 2K. Like, that's so good. This card is so good for a 2K. I cannot express, like, that's one of the most playable 2Ks. I really, really like it. Next we have Onami, and this is just a nice, solid blocker. If you have 8 or more Dawn on your field, trash a card and draw 2. Like, who doesn't want a blocker that's easy to play and gets you some cycling card, like you cycle some cards out of your hand, get some new 2Ks in your hand. Like, Luffy loves that. This deck loves to have a bunch of cards in hand, a bunch of 2Ks in hand, and this Onami is going to help you do that a lot. Speaking of cards in hand, we have Sangoro, just another banger card, 5/6 with 1,000 counter 2. When attacking once per turn, if you have 8 or more Dawn, draw a card. broken. Like that, it's just so good. Like it's so simple, but this card is so good because you get to play it so fast in this deck, and you get to play it so fast because you're a leader ramp, and also because of Luffy Taro, just being able to play another character. So we'll just go ahead and talk about him. 7/8 on play, Dawn -1, play a purple Straw Hat Crew character with the cost of 5 or less from your hand. So you can play the Sangoro, you can play the Zorojuro, you can play the Onami, you can play the Usohachi, you can play anything in this deck except for the Gear 5 Luffy off of Luffy Taro. And yeah, I think this card's awesome. I'm really happy they type restricted it though, because if it wasn't, this would be splashed into a lot of different decks and Straw Hat engines would just be kind of running around. And yeah, I think it's a great card, and I really, really like it. Especially the combo you want is Luffy into Sangoro, just being able to stick that on the field, and then next turn you're hitting for an 8, you're hitting for a 6, drawing a card, and you still have, what, 8 Dawn? Maybe 9 if you use leader effect again, maybe 10 if you ramped right. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. Like, this card's awesome. And then the last awesome card in this deck, like they're all good cards, is Zorojuro, being an on play. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a purple Straw Hat Crew type card and put it into your hand, then place the rest on the bottom of your deck. I mean, a lot of these cards just go into this leader, as well as the new black purple Luffy. Just being able to play all these purple Straw Hats, especially the Zorojuro. We get a slew of new Straw Hat purple cards in 09. So yeah, these cards, if you're wanting to play purple in 09, you are definitely going to want to get your hands on this deck. I'd recommend just grabbing 2 of it. It's another note I need to make. I always recommend grabbing 2 of a starter deck if you're going to pick them up. I always pick up 2 of every starter deck. I've only regretted it like once or twice with some of the bad decks, but you never know when those cards are going to be relevant. Most of the time it's the super rares, but even sometimes it's some of the uncommons or commons in there. And yeah, I religiously pick up 2 of each starter deck just so that I have the cards. But if you are wanting to play the cards in it, you definitely want to grab 2, because there's always 2 ofs in a starter deck, and in this game it is 4 of for a play set. So Luffy deck, do I like it? Yes, I think it's the second best one, only outclassed by 1, and we're about to talk about that. And definitely recommend grabbing 2 of these. I think this is a great deck to give to a beginner friend that is trying to get into the game, and they can actually take this and do pretty decent with it. I mean, you have 10 2Ks in here. Yeah, you have 10 2Ks. You have 8 blockers. Yeah, I mean, this deck's awesome right out of the box. But let's go ahead and talk about the best starter deck out of the box, and that is going to be Doflamingo. All right, y'all, let's get this video wrapped up. I'm trying to keep it short and sweet for you, but I'm over the 20-minute mark right now already. We had a lot of cards to cover, and I'm going to keep this one short and simple. This is the best deck. This deck pushes Dofi to meta relevancy, instantly puts it into a tier 1 category, as well as the purple Luffy. I didn't mention that, but it definitely pushes purple Luffy up there as a meta contender as well. And yeah, this one's kind of scary, and the reprints are so good for this deck. You have Dofi blocker, you have the Jinbei promo, you have even the 4/6 vanilla Moria. Like, this came out of 02. Everybody might not have access to this card, so it's just a decent reprint. The add back Moria, I mean, this card was nearing $10 at one point until we knew that it was getting printed back in here. And even though it's getting reprinted, like, the original one's still like $4 or $5, and this one is probably going to have a couple dollars behind it as well. Like, it's just that good of a card and necessary for the strategy. And then finally, this 2K Mihawk reprint is also really, really good. But yeah, this deck is awesome. Let's just go ahead and talk about these new cards. You have a new Crocodile. It's a 4/5 on play, reveals the top card of your deck. If it's a 7 Warlords, draw 2 and put 1 from your hand back on the top of your deck. So broken. I mean, if you're playing this out of the box, you're not going to whiff on that effect. Like, it has to be a 7 Warlords of the Sea type, and it's a card. It's not just a character, so you cannot whiff in this deck with that card. Actually broken. If you're playing in a sealed event and you play this, you're hitting it every time. You're going to get that draw 2. Then you're going to be able to stack that card for your leader effect. Absolutely insane. This card's awesome. Law, this card's awesome, but also annoying. Very, very strong card. On play, return one of your characters to its hand, your owner's hand. Sorry, you return one of your characters to its owner's hand, and if your leader has 7 Warlords typing, you return a 4 or lower character to its owner's hand. So you can bounce any of your characters. So you can bounce like your Buggy back to your hand, your Teach back to your hand. You can bounce this back to your hand, and then you get to bounce an opponent's 4 cost. So doing this like anytime during the game is just a great disruption, and then also gets you back a card, hopefully a 2K, or maybe even your add back Moria, something like that. You know, you just get some extra value out of it. You could even attack with your Dofi blocker, play this, bounce it back to your hand, replay it. Like, I don't know, there's infinite possibilities with this card, and it's kind of insane. And not to mention that all of this is backed up by other 7 Warlord support that we just got in Jim Bay. Being able to play any of these cards from your hand is insanely powerful. Next we have Buggy, and this kind of just replaces Perona as a 1-2. That's a 2K counter as well, and looks at the top 3 cards of your deck instead of the top 5. But it is a 7 Warlord, so you can play it off a leader. You're not going to whiff on it. You're getting a 2K. It's a 2K instead of just a 1. This card's awesome. Great card. And then Boa, I think this might be the best card in the deck. Let me know what you think, though, Dofi players down below. But I think this card is sick. 4/6 blocker on play, looks at the top 3 of your deck, places them in any order, and then you give your 7 Warlords of the C-type leader or character a Rested Dawn. So just insanely powerful. You get to play this, set up your top deck, give your leader a Dawn, so then you only have to put 1 other Dawn on him. Or you can give it to any of your other characters you want to attack with. Like, this card's just awesome. It's really good. And the next we have Teach, which I think is also a decent card. But I like some of these other cards over it just a little bit more. It's a 2/3 with 1,000 counter. Activate main once per turn. Place a card from your hand at the top of your deck. Attach up to 2 Rested Dawn to your leader or characters. The only reason I don't like this card is because it feels like it's setting you back. You know, if you say you play this, you go first, you play this on turn 2. You're on 3 Dawn. You play this. You put a card from your hand back onto your deck. You're going from 6 cards to 5 by playing it, down to 4 by putting 1 on the top of your deck. Then you attack with your leader. You get to play that and play, say it's a Jinbei, and you play another card out of your hand, and it's a Weevil. You draw a card. You're sitting on 4 cards in hand instead of more that you could have. I don't know. I just feel like this card just sets you back a card instead of pushing you forward a card like these other ones do. So that's my only qualm about the Marshall D Teach. Other than that, I do like this card. I think it's great, and in theory it sounds really powerful, but I am not, if I was going to build Dofi, I probably would not put this in the deck. But that's my opinion on this deck. This is the best one to come out in my opinion. This pushes Dofi to a new height, and yeah, get ready for Dofi meta, Dofi and Luffy meta, because I think that will be running everywhere, as well as a little bit of Lucci. But yeah, if you haven't gotten your hands on these structure decks by pre-ordering them or going and picking them up at your LGS today, I'd be just keeping an eye out at your big box retailers at your LGS to see if they get any more stock. But I know these are in high demand. I know that multiple retailers have canceled orders, and I hope you're able to find yours. But if not, you can always buy singles, and I definitely think there are a lot of singles worth grabbing. Definitely all the SRs are worth grabbing out of these decks, and then a couple of the other notable cards are definitely worth grabbing out of these decks. But let me know what you think about these new starter decks down in the comments. Are you excited for the new ones that are coming out next year too? I'm excited to see what leaders we're getting revealed for those. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all on the next one. Peace.